People with metal detectors, what's your best find? My friend lost his wedding ring in a lake while splashing around with his kids. We searched the area and the water was only waist deep, but we still had to dive and feel by hand, which was an exacting task. We almost gave up when we spotted a guy with a metal detector, so we asked for his help. It took him half an hour, but he did find it. My friend offered him $100, but the guy refused and just had a couple of beers with us. He said just the fun and excitement of finding something that meant a lot to someone was more than worth it. The guy used the metal detector in the water. I'm actually curious about this since my dad also lost his wedding ring in a lake. Though the funniest part of that story was my mum one day noticed he wasn't wearing a ring and asked where it was. He confessed he'd lost it in a lake and said he'd been dreading telling her. She asked when it had happened. His response was 8 years ago. I was metal detecting a beach just outside of Tokyo and found a platinum wedding band. I was searching a different area when a local came and mimed that he lost a ring. Within about 5 minutes I got the clearest, loudest tone I have ever heard, and it happened to be the one he lost. His new wife was so happy and kept nudging him to give me something. He kept miming for drinks or cash, but I turned him down. It was amazing to be able to actually find the owner, and I had never found anything of real value up until that point. The look of relief on their faces will stay with me until the day I die. As a side note, I metal detected Singapore and a large crowd started watching. I found a super cheap vending machine quality ring and the entire group started cheering. It was absolute junk, but the vibe was awesome. I found a buried safe, and it had an entire family's passports, money clips with $700 worth of money and 2 PS Vitas. Unusual to say the least. Reported it to the resort I was staying at, and it belonged to a family whose hotel room was robbed earlier that day. I'm still confused as to why it was buried. Back when my neighbor was into metal detecting, I was curious what he could find in my yard, because I live in a house that's over 100 years old. So I told him to have at it, so long as I can tag along. He found some horseshoes, some various metal bolts and pins, and a few other metal objects that were pretty much just bits of scrap metal. But the coolest one was a little steel toy car that I lost when I was a kid. I used to play with it outside in the dirt all the time, and it must have gotten buried in mud when the back of our property started to flood and get swampy. Rusted badly, but it was still recognizable. Someone with a metal detector found my husband's high school class ring on the banks of a local river. He had lost it during a rowing event about 15 years prior. The guy contacted my husband's high school and they tracked him down. I have the ring in my dresser right now. My husband didn't care too much, but I was amazed by the work the kind stranger put in. I mailed him a Buffalo Wild Wings gift card lol. I found an ox shoe on a road in the woods near my parents' house that is documented as having been used prior to the Civil War. There are several home sites in the area as well. Other finds in the road have included tobacco tins, dog collar, and a 1942 quarter. So my brothers had just purchased these super cool metal detectors and my son, who was 6 at the time, begged and begged to use it. Please Uncle Dave, please, can I use it? And they got so fed up they handed it to him and told him to be careful with it. Like 12 seconds in he exclaims that there's a dollar right here and starts digging. About a foot and a half later he runs up to us with a soggy, muddy, wet, dirty dollar bill. We lost our minds laughing at that for a while. Still have no clue how it happened. A metal detecting guy called me about 10 years ago from the East Coast. In the woods he had found a class of 1946 high school ring with initials. He called the school and tracked it down to my mom. She thinks she lost it horseback riding. We gladly gave the guy a finder's fee and she put it back on her finger 70 years after she lost it. When I was a kid in Santa Barbara we were visiting the site of the original Presidio. They were still excavating parts of the site looking for artifacts. I looked down and picked up a gold decorative button from a Spanish military uniform. I showed to my teacher but everyone said it was nothing. I think they took it from me. No idea what actually happened to it. Hey friend, I'm from Santa Barbara as well. Similar thing happened to my friend. She found a pottery fragment at the Presidio on a field trip. She showed someone who worked there who promptly took it from her, presumably to have it looked at by one of the historians. Needless to say, she never got it back and was still mad about it like 15 years later. Lol. This was probably around 1990. We were in the 3rd grade. This wasn't my find, but my brother's. Some important context is that my family and I used to live in a small town in Pennsylvania where my dad grew up, but a few years ago we moved all the way to Oregon where my mom grew up. Anyways, one day my brother went metal detecting on our family's property and he came across a golden colored lock. When he later got it cleaned off, he noticed that it had a manufacturing date and said where it was made. Well, it turned out that it was made during the 1800s and that it was made in that same exact town we used to live in. It felt like it was fate that my dad grew up in that same exact town, then married a woman from Oregon, then they both raised their kids in that same town, then moved back to Oregon, where we would find that lock. Not me post, but my employee at work. This guy just loves going to the beach and metal detecting. Spends his day baking in the sun and just enjoying the fresh air. Absolutely loves it, and talks about it constantly. So I posed this same question to him and he said, "Man, that's tough. I'll bring my box." So he brings a cigar box with his favorite finds and he's got some pretty neat stuff. But nestled in the corner of the box is a diamond encrusted bracelet. Oh yeah, those are real and the metal's platinum. Thing's worth a mint and he's like, no big deal. It's the hunt that's worth it. A buddy and I went out drunk metal detecting after a New Year's Eve rager a few years back and found a 14K gold ring that weighed in at 9 grams. It was in bad shape, but gold nonetheless. I ended up taking the ring to a jeweler to melt down, to forge it into my wedding band which I'm currently wearing. It also has bits of gold from my wife's engagement ring, from when it was resized, and my mother's old gold earrings. It's a pretty special piece and a memory I'll hold on to forever. Not my find, but when I was in elementary school, I had a friend who swiped his dad's detector and went to a local soccer field. He found a really old Roman coin a couple of feet down, like ancient. The baffling thing was this was in the western US. At first we thought it could be a sham, a prank, or counterfeit in some way, but they had it appraised, and it was the genuine article. Appraiser was eager to buy it. They kept it, put it into a safe deposit box, and that's the last I heard of it decades later. My dad used a metal detector on a beach in Suffolk, England. He had a very clear signal, so started digging. Every time he checked, the same signal came through, so deeper he went. After a while someone else took over, but lost the signal, so my dad had to show them how to use the device properly. It was soon discovered that only my dad could get the signal. It was then quickly realized that the metal being detected wasn't in the hole, but was the metal in my dad's leg that was put there when he had a motorbike crash. When my brother and I were about 10 years old, we were playing in our grandmother's garage and found an old metal detector that we begged our grandmother to show us how to use it. Surprisingly, it still worked after years of sitting in dust. My brother and I took turns scanning her yard and found an odd coin and small, rusted chunks of mystery scrap metal and were thoroughly excited. On our last pass, we scanned by a little lighthouse garden ornament and found a ring. We rushed in to show our grandma, who then broke down crying at the sight of her lost engagement ring. She had lost it years ago while gardening. That was probably the proudest my brother and I ever felt. My grandfather would take me metal detecting at a popular beach on a big lake whenever I would visit. His wife liked jewelry, and so he'd always make a quick stop to the mall. I'd get an ice cream cone, and he'd chat with the nice lady at the jewelry counter for some reason. He'd take me out and kinda help guide me. I found a silver necklace. It was crazy, still in the box and everything. It looked brand new. I was so excited I got to give my grandma a necklace. Smoothest gift giving ever from that old man. Miss you, grandpa. Growing up with a library of fantasy novels beneath my bed gave me the impression that vast caches of gold and jewels were stashed all throughout the world, and that a dedicated adventurer need only have the right tools to find them. While the harsh realities of adult life dimmed that perspective a little bit, I've always loved the idea that I could find buried treasure with very little effort. So when my mother asked me what I wanted for my 22nd birthday, I requested a metal detector. She wasted no time in teasing me about that decision, but she bought it for me nonetheless. The day that it arrived, I got a group of friends together and we all went down to the beach, intent on finding a fortune hidden just beneath the sand. Right away, we discovered that San Francisco's western shore was absolutely covered with metallic objects. Within 10 minutes of our arrival, my metal detector had helped us locate a corroded hunk of something which might have been a battery at one point, and a generous handful's worth of rusty nails. In fact, those latter items were so plentiful that we decided they were actually the larval form of a species which we dubbed sandworms. It was easier than accepting that the beach was a case of tetanus waiting to happen, I guess. We stayed out there for a few hours, until well after the sun had set, and as anyone who has been there can tell you, nightfall is when San Francisco's beaches become prime locations for bonfires. Our quest had been largely fruitless by that point, but my friends and I reasoned that, if we waited long enough, we might be able to find valuable trinkets, such as jewelry and the like, that drunken revelers had dropped. After another hour or so had passed, we made sure that the metal detector was working and set off on our next sweep. Now, I should mention here that my friends and I had a habit of dressing in dark clothes at the time, and as a result, we weren't particularly surprised when very few people noticed us making our way between pyres. This had the unintended side effect of making us seem like we were trying to be sneaky, which was exactly the wrong impression to give when as we walked up to one location and encountered a topless girl wrestling with one of her male friends. They were laughing uproariously as they rolled around in the sand, oblivious to the world around them. Truth be told, if we'd just kept walking, I'm sure that my friends and I would have passed by completely unnoticed. Unfortunately, my metal detector chose that precise moment to alert us to the presence of yet another sandworm. The eager beeping noise caught the attention of the topless girl and her wrestling partner. They rolled off each other, then stared up at me with wide-eyed horror, clearly embarrassed and perhaps a little bit scared at having been caught in such a compromising position by a group of black-clad strangers. "Oh, hi," I said, nervously clearing my throat. I glanced down at my metal detector. "Have you guys seen any gold coins?" They hadn't.